All right, so over here, built for Thomas Brown, innkeeper 1777. How old is that? Yeah, guys, I'm here in downtown Fredericksburg off Caroline Street. And I actually took a tour yesterday of the Rising Sun Tavern, had to come back out here to do my introduction. And yeah, a lot of good stuff inside. And you can see the age on it. I'll tell you, this porch isn't original. It was built in the 1970s. And okay, you can see the dip in the roof. And yeah, it was originally the home of Charles Washington, the brother of George. And yeah, this place, it's a little bit of a hidden gem. It's kind of off, well, not off the beaten path, but it's several blocks outside of downtown, the main part of Fredericksburg. Yeah, so not as many people know about this place. But yeah, you could picture this back in the day, dirt road, horse and buggy traveling down here. All the well-to-dos would have stopped and visited. George Washington, obviously when he visited his brother, dined here many times. Yeah, so like I say, Rising Sun Tavern, which was originally called the Golden Eagle Tavern. But yeah, it was built for Charles Washington, and he lived here about 20 years. And okay, yeah, Susan Constant, Speedwell Discovery up there, 1607. Pretty cool. And yeah, it's on the National Register. A lot of good stuff inside, so let me just walk up on the porch, and later on they're going to be hanging the Betsy Ross flag. I'll show you the hours, and it's $10 for an adult ticket, and for $24 you can visit the Rising Sun Tavern, the Hugh Mercer Apothecary, and Mary Washington's house. And like I say, that's more in the main part of town.
So welcome to the Rising Sun Tavern. Before we talk a little bit about this being a tavern, we'll talk about it being a home. Charles Washington, George Washington's youngest brother, purchases the lots here, constructs the home in the early 1760s, will live here with his wife Mildred, Mildred and their children, and they will eventually move west to what we know as Charlestown, West Virginia. Charles founded the town, named a lot of the streets after his own family members. So when he leaves here, his son, George Augustine Washington, has control of it for a bit, but eventually the home is purchased by a gentleman named Gustavus Wallace. He will never live here. He leases it as a tavern for approximately 20, 25 years, somewhere around there. While never actually living here. But the Wallace family owns the home right up until the 1900s when the APVA purchases it and turns it into a museum. So what we're standing in now, this would have been, we think, the banquet room. Well, let's backtrack. The dining room for Charles Washington's home. But once it becomes a tavern, it's likely being used as a banquet room. As opposed to the other area on the other side we'll see here shortly, this was probably an area where gentlemen came together, purchased the space for amount of time, and something that was referred to as club. On the bowl, in the bowl is a reproduction punch. It was quite popular. Punch is an Indian word for 5 ingredients. There'd be the alcohol, this case rum, spices, clove or nutmeg, water. You'd have citrus, lime, lemon, and then you'd have sugar as well. That's actually a voting box that the Masons donated to the museum, where the term blackball comes from. If you were up to be a Mason, those in favor of you becoming a Mason would put a white ball in, and it would just take one black ball to halt your progress in becoming a Mason. Over in France, they were familiar with Benjamin Franklin, not so much George Washington, perhaps by name, but not by looks. And if you look at the bottom, it says George Washington and clearly Benjamin Franklin. And the corner cupboard here, this is a later addition. This was not here when Charles built the house. Now the cards, I don't have the gloves on, but the cards on the instrument there, back behind you, those are from actually the time period. The ones on the table are card table or reproduction. Someone out there can correct me. Is that a harp loop guitar? Yeah, and it's pretty rare. But in George Washington's diaries, he mentions multiple times about visiting here, dining here. But when he's in town, based on his other diary entries, he's he is staying with his sister Betty and her husband Fielding. Part of that time was at the house on Princess Anne Street, but by the fall of 1775, the Lewises have moved back to what we know as Kenmore today. So on the wall here is the original tavern license from our first tavern keeper. You'll see his signature, John Fraser. He was one of about 7 to 8 tavern keepers here. And this is, I guess, what we would consider today upcycled. If you look closely, you'll see the original document has King George III's name. He was the king during the American Revolution. So once the war's over, the colony of Virginia becomes the Commonwealth of Virginia. This license is issued to John Fraser by the governor, Henry Lee, who was known as Harry Lighthorse Lee, a famous cavalry officer during the war. Yeah, so the clock, unlike the one at the Mary Washington House, was not made here in town. The clock was made up in, I believe it's Concord in Massachusetts. And it still works. The interpreters wind it every day. Unlike the one at the Mary Washington House, which is an 8-day clock, this one would require to be wound every day. So the clock will just demonstrate, I was mentioning earlier that every morning the interpreters come in and wind this. So you would take the key here, put it in, oops, hold on, let me try again. Take it and this is up, and then you just do the same thing on the other side. It just winds up, and this is not an 8-day clock, so as I was saying earlier, this needs to be done every day. Now this is a false door, I will mention that. The door in front of you is a false door. It's simply there to keep the symmetry of the door to its left. we'll see 4 different bedrooms here. And they're representative of what you might expect to find at taverns throughout Virginia. This was kind of a middling sort or middle-class tavern, and traditionally you could have expected a room very similar to this had you come to a tavern of this status. The next door, this room is set up a little bit more fancier. Now there was at least two in the early 1800 taverns, a little further down Caroline Street. What was Whedon's, and then the Indian Queen, which is where the Courtyard by Marriott is. They were kind of upscale, and you could expect a room very similar to this if you stayed at one of those taverns. A storage area, what might be better known to the people of the period as a lumber room or storage area where different things would have been kept. That is a hip tub. Immersion baths, as we know them today, were very rare. A Philadelphia woman, Elizabeth Drinker, had written it had been over a decade since she was fully immersed in water. So a hip tub was a way for you to cleanse yourself. And then down on the left, you'll see the pallets on the floor. Had you been traveling to a lesser tavern, perhaps you found yourself out in Western Virginia, and by that I mean, the spine of the Appalachian, Shenandoah Valley, Winchester area, especially early part of the 1700s, you would probably expect combinations like this. Yeah, that's similar to the one we showed earlier, and this is a representation of one that you would have found at the Indian Queen a little further down Caroline Street.
A writing chair back there or something?
Yes, that's what exactly. It reminds me of a 18th century desk that similar to a desk I used when I was like in elementary school. So this space here that you're coming into, we interpret as the tavern keeper's office. This is where John Fraser or Martha Fisher would have conducted the business of the tavern. Very intensive record keeping, purchasing items, making sure the stables were in good order. There were enslaved people here taking care of all of that. Now, earlier when we were at the Mary Washington House, we saw a boot rack in one of the upstairs rooms. This is another boot rack, and here you get an idea of how the boots would have been stored in the boot rack. The boot jack would have assisted a gentleman removing his boots after a long day in the saddle. On the wall here, I think this is one of the tavern's most prized possessions. This is a map that Thomas Jefferson's father, Peter Jefferson, and a gentleman named Joshua Fry did. This is not original to them, but it is an original engraving from the time period. It's divided into 4 parts, so once upon a time, this was one large map. And the paddle horn here on the table, this is an original piece as well. Get closer, you can see the design on it, something called scrimshaw, where items would be carved in. This one seems to feature a lot of animals. I believe there's an octopus right here as well. It's a pretty interesting piece. This is a safe. Our understanding is it belonged to Basil Gordon, often considered the first millionaire in America. I don't know if that's actually documented or not, but he lived over in Falmouth. Him and his brother Samuel came from Scotland, and this piece actually belonged to him. This was a horse measuring stick. Horse racing was big in the colony. It was big here in Fredericksburg as well. It measured by height and hands. And you can see at the far right, you can see the horse's head. I'll point out the indenture on the wall here. I would argue by the late 1700s, indentured servitude had really given way, long before actually the end of the 1700s, given way to a slave-based or enslaved-based labor force. But indentured servants routinely could not afford to pay their way from Europe to a colony, and someone would sponsor them. In return, they would have their passage across the Atlantic paid for, and then they would offer their labor for 7 years, anywhere from 4 to 7 years. And then once that indenture was over, they would be freed, unlike slavery, where you were an enslaved person from birth until death. And that is an original document. On the desk there, it's a reproduction of White's George Washington's, not sure, because he did not live here, obviously, but it's a reproduction of George Washington's ledger book. This is the tap room. This would have been the public area for the tavern. You could have came here, had a meal, something to drink, discussed politics. By the time this place becomes a tavern in the late 1790s, you have the Whiskey Rebellion going on. A little bit later, the War of 1812. Surely things that would have been discussed in a space like this. Usually you don't have much of a selection. Not in this space anyway. Wouldn't have had much of a selection. Whatever the cook was cooking is what you would have ate. And then the oysters here, one of my favorite setups, were quite popular. I mentioned earlier at one of the other locations, George Washington was frequently writing about having oysters. Under the glass are some artifacts that were found in our neighbor's yard, off to the right of where I'm standing, and these were found in the kitchen that no longer stands. There's a private home that sits there now as well. Part of the bar cage here is original, and the advertisements would have hung up from the direction you're standing. The far right-hand side is original. You can see all the holes from where the advertisements would have been hung. So this was a pretty lively place. The bar there, the cage, is not necessarily for the barkeeper, but to protect the glass, which is very expensive for the time period. The checker pieces are made of whalebone. So right here in the corner is a table chair. You can pull up and out, and the chair will become a table. So the well, don't know much about the well house, the structure. We do know there was one well on the corner down here from where we just came from when we walked up. And the other dependency on the far side, today that's just a gardening shed back in the corner. Next door is where the kitchen was located. Off to my right is where the kitchen was located, and I pointed out a couple of the artifacts. They were found in the neighbor's yard. The dovecote here, this dovecote does not date to the time period, but this was a way for folks, and I imagine they're still being used today, although this one is not, for doves to come and go, and perhaps eventually make it to the dinner table. A later tavern keeper in the 1800s, he constructed a billiards hall here and advertised it in the local newspaper. And then we have some good old Virginia tobacco up front here. Now I'll let you know, that is supposed to say statesman, but we lost our M, and that confuses quite a few folks. A lot of folks will come inside and ask what a state's N is, but we just simply lost our M.
I told you a lot of good stuff inside. Before I sign out, I've got this crepe myrtle over here fully in bloom, and the Schuler House 1891. And this wrought iron fence, I bet you was made at the foundry that was owned by John Herkamp. He was a German immigrant, lived here at the time of the Civil War. All right, guys, that's it for the Rising Sun Tavern. Like I say, great place to check out if you're ever here in Fredericksburg. As always, like and subscribe. See you on the next one.